Yeah, I consider it. I don't like it that I've got friends that get taken in by this kind of bullshit. And I wanted to say that me and Richard Wolf, we're kin in a way. We share a politic. We are in agreement with each other about a lot of things. This isn't one of them. What's going to, follow and everything, and and what I have to impart about this, you know, um, I'm just going to go over how I put it here because this was probably the most eloquent, that I can be. Anyone who knows fuck all, as in anything about geopolitics, knows the BRICS Plus or nations are going to fail in their mission to de-dollarize the world. Look, the big Belt and Road Initiative that I myself, if you knew me on Facebook back in the day, you on this channel probably didn't, but that I myself had talked about the big new Chinese plan that I was somewhat excited by because I was like, wow, Chinese have this infrastructure that we're missing now. I'm excited about this. I wish that we had some of this here at home. But the Belt and Road Initiative is making Pakistan into the crown jewel of it. Now, and how do you think and this is so key. I mean, I'm the one who was so actively sharing Arundai Roy's come September speech on Facebook back in the day. A little too smart for my own good, but I can tell you that Arundai talked a lot about waking up every day in her corner of the world where her government promised Pakistan nuclear Armageddon, and Pakistan did likewise. And she talked about the saber rattling and the nuclear holocaust that they were both promising each other for a long time. In passing, she didn't make this the focal point of her speech, but this was one aspect of it. You know, this solidified for me the understanding that Pakistan and India hate each other. They're mortal enemies, and they both wake up in sheer terror. And this terror haunts both nations and terrifies citizens in both countries of this nuclear Armageddon that each other can unleash on each other, and they all realize that they could destroy each other, in a feud that could break out between the two of them at any point. In other words, what the Chinese are doing in Pakistan will only inflame tensions in India. I barely need to say anything more about why the BRICS are going, nations and the impotent and the impotence of the alleged threat they impose to dollar hegemony. Tensions between these countries, countries that are rising, not just over the border, but over China's assistance and allyship with Pakistan. I think China would likely win this war, but it would be a Pyrrhic victory if there ever was one. The thing is, the G7 is based that the G7 nations all basically get along with each other and have common values. Save for the fact that Trump is disrupting them currently, but he's not going to last. This is his last term. He's going to be gone soon enough, and G7 nation relationships will heal. Once he's out of office. But the G7 all get along, whereas the BRIC alliance all hate each other and disagree over even the most basic of things, and will tear each other apart, fighting long before they are able to come together widely enough to be a threat to threaten anything, much less the U.S. dollar, which is truly massive in scale globally. Sorry, but Richard Wolf about this. We're both leftists, but he's just very, very incorrect about this one. I'm a member of the global village who just happens to be from the United States. I'm way too smart to panic over BRICS Plus, and you should be too. Everyone already knows that I'm an anti-nationalist, so news at 11. Obviously, sarcasm. You know, this isn't newsworthy. Basically, it's already well known about me. Flags are bits of colored cloth that governments use first to shrink wrap people's minds, and then as ceremonial shrouds to bury the dead. I found Aronne's speech to be extremely eloquent. Despite the controversial topics that she was discussing in the Come September speech, it was spoken with such an eloquence and profundity that it struck me. It resonated. Despite the fact that I am from the United States, and that I'm from this part of the world, because despite the fact that what she was saying was extremely controversial, She said it with such eloquence, and profundity that it. And I hate to reuse words, but she did it with such a. She was well spoken, and she did it so well that it didn't come across offensively. It broke through. You know. Anyways, I listened to that speech, and I've listened to it, a couple of hundred times by now. So I'm well aware, of the tension between India and Pakistan, and the geopolitical tension, and I'm left asking Richard Wolff and these people who have come forward to fearmonger about the BRICS and de-dollarization. How do you think India is going to react when when it finds out? I'm expecting crickets here. I can tell you not well. You know, the the BRICS nations are going to tear each other apart long before they are able